homes are going out there and what it's going to do to traffic and that kind of thing. And they asked for more additional information from staff, from our engineering staff about traffic and what could be done there. When it came back, they ended up approving the project as you had recommended, but with one exception. They required that the 100 feet of Linden Road, as it continued to the east through their subdivision, they were only going to develop part of it. They were only going to develop half of the road. And the other half was going to be on a future development to the south. And they decided that the condition would be that the full right-of-way would be required and that the entire roadway would be needing to be developed on this development's property. And so the developer agreed to that, and that condition was attached to the approval. The second one and the third one were not considered by you. One was a variance for a garage that was built without permits in the setback. And they questioned the construction of it, the safety of the building. It was done not according to building standards, and it was in the setback, and so they denied their variance request based on those things and concerns about the health and public safety. And then there was a vacation of a 7-foot wide portion of a 12-foot wide rear easement at 14919 North Fitzwilliam Street. And this one was, again, to just clean up this area and the easement that was required. And so that one was approved without any additional conditions. So that's all I have for those.
You have the next?
I do, yeah. All right, so can I get you to hit swap screens over there? Thank you. So, Chair and Commissioners, we're excited to present this annual report to you. We've been working on this for several years. We've kind of been working up to this. The first annual report we did was back in 2020, and quarterly reports were given each quarter after that, showing where subdivisions are going and how many units. At the end of each year, we did a little more detail, and we included information about population changes, historical annual dwelling units approved, the average gross density for approved final plats, annual history of acreage used per dwelling units approved, and multiple family units approved by type compared to other communities and historical averages. So this was a big step for us. We haven't done a lot of reporting over the years, but this was the first step. We hoped that data would help commissioners and council see the impact of development related decision making and help them make more informed decisions for the future. And though it was a small step in the right direction for data reporting, we knew this report could expand significantly, and we could start looking at a lot of different data. And we have done that. This is a new step in that process, and we are excited to present this. I actually kind of turned reins over on this report to Brianna Sun. She's here with us today. She's our future planner, senior planner for the department, and she just took the reins and ran with it, and it's a great product, and we're excited to show it to you tonight. We believe that the data that we've presented is accurate. We're going to present a few changes that we found, or corrections that we gave from the document we presented to you, but we believe this will really help you in the future make decisions and know where the city's going. Because of the great work by Brianna, we are taking this report to the next level this year and hope to continue to expand our content in the coming years. So we hope to keep going with this and get a little more data each year. So with that, I'll jump into just the content. Here's the table of contents you can see. That's in the report. And then I've kind of summarized how we got here, what kind of content we have included. And then because the public is going to see this document, and we put this on our website and it's available to anybody. All the reports we've done to you since 2020 have been on our website. We wanted to make sure that the public understood what these terms are. A lot of times they come to this process, participate in this process, and it's not real clear to them because they don't have a good grasp of what the terminology is that we use. And so this defines some key terms that we use throughout the report. I'm not going to go through all those, but that's at the very beginning of the document. In the past, we have relied heavily on Compass, our regional planning organization, to provide population estimates. And while we will continue to rely on those numbers for estimates in the future or projections of where we're going to go, we relied heavily on the U.S. Census data and their estimates from their survey that they do on an annual basis to show this trend, the population trend. I think the dip in 2022 is, in 2020 is based on the kind of correcting their numbers. Census gave estimates before, and then they actually did the full-on 10-year census data gathering, and that adjusted the population estimate down a little bit from where they were anticipating. So that's not necessarily that population went down, it was just a correction in their estimates. And as you can see, in 2023, we're at 114,000 people, almost 115,000 people. At the bottom of the screen, we can see some demographic data for the county, and significant things we learn include that approximately 63% of our population is employed, approximately 25% of the population is Hispanic or Latino, and 23.1% of the population has obtained a bachelor's degree or higher. Before, this gave a number, just the actual number, not the percentage. And so we corrected that on this screen. The number on there wasn't accurate. So 23.1% is a bachelor's degree or higher. And then the median household income is approximately $70,000. So again, this demographic data, I just encourage us as part of this planning and development process that we consider the people who are already here and what their demographics are as we make decisions about what the future of Nampa will be. With that, I'm going to turn the time over to Bree to go through this, and then we'll kind of trade off. I'll jump back in when it gets to the density, but we'll jump into the total applications and how what we've been working on this past year.
Are you going to change the slides? Oh, sorry. Mr. Chair and Commissioners, my name is Brianna Sun, Senior Planner with the Planning and Zoning Department. I'm excited to share this information with you. So we're going to start off, as Rodney just said, with 2023 applications. So in 2023, we received and processed 473 applications, over 100 of those being accessory structure and fence permits. It's important to keep in mind we process over 25 different types of applications through our department. Some of those being public hearings. So in 2023, we had 157 public hearings, and that is between both City Council and Planning and Zoning public hearings. And then total applications submitted year over year. So since 2018, we've seen an overall increase in the number of applications we've received and processed, except for 2020, likely due to COVID-19, the pandemic. Compared to the previous 2 years, we processed slightly fewer applications in 2023, and the fewer public hearings reflect that as well in the fewer applications. For subdivision plats here, we processed 8 short plats, 20 preliminary plats, 24 final plats, and the bulk of those were in residential. The yellow at the top shows the commercial industrial plats. And then moving on to multifamily development. In multifamily units, we saw a significant decrease in 2023 2023 in the number of approved units. 74 multifamily units were approved through a conditional use permit, and 299 were approved through another entitlement means. Specifically, this one was one annexation into an RMH zoning district. In the past 6 years, a total of 4,274 multifamily units have been approved. And then Rodney is going to talk about density, and then I will come back to finish us out here. Yep.
That's okay. Yeah.
Or do you want to switch? Because that's not going to show.
I'll switch later.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay. So we're first going to take a look at the preliminary plats, and those that those are those that will be developed approximately in the next 3 to 7 years, or even longer than that. So that's your long-range thinking about where are we going to be, 3, 5, 7, 10 years down the road. What kind of developments will we be seeing get developed? The yellow line is the number of units, and the green is the acreage consumed with that development. The larger the gap between the two lines, the denser the developments being approved. In 2021 was our largest spike in units approved through preliminary plats, and it dropped in 2022. But depending on what is ultimately approved, it may rise again in 2023. In 2023, we have shown both those already approved, and then another line that's the lighter line showing the total if all that have been applied for are approved. So you can see that jump up in numbers if they all get approved. Now let's look at the bottom half of this screen. These are the final plats, and these are those that are going to be developed in the next 1 year to 2 to 3 years from now. This time we see the spike in 2019 and then another in 2022. Remember that these are the result of preliminary plats approved 3 to 7 or more years prior. So this is the result of those. Though in 2022 we did see some approved in the 2021 preliminary plat spike. So there were some that got turned around pretty quickly during that rush of 2021 development. The density for what has been approved in preliminary plats rose significantly in 2022. This means that we will likely see more dense development in the coming years. Density for final plats showed the opposite trend, as developments that were approved in years previously were approved at much lower densities, and that's why you see that for the final plats being the lower density. 2023 appears to show a change in that density trend, and we anticipate this to continue to trend upward due to the preliminary plat trend of being a little bit higher density. And then I'd like to just show you the map that we typically provide you of where those subdivisions are occurring. Okay, so again, 3 to 7 years out, these are preliminary plats that were approved, and you can see, I think this is one of the most promising maps I've shown you for these densities. You can see that a lot of these preliminary plats are inside the boundary of the city, so they're enclaved properties. That's significant. I don't think I've seen that for all the years that I've been here, how significant we've had these infill developments. So those are the preliminary plats, kind of all over, but internal to the city primarily. And then here are the final plats. Again, these are just consistent with what, didn't load. There we go. So these are consistent with the preliminary plats that have been approved in the past years before this. And you can see the trend was the northwest and the southeast. These are preliminary plats that were approved years ago and now are seeing final plats and construction happening. This is a little different than what we've seen in the past, as from the north and the southwest. So kind of moving around the community a little bit in this year. And then these are the short plats, and this was no change from the previous year. Okay, so I'm going to give the reins back to Bree now.
So here, to kind of keep talking about units approved versus, in this case, the slide is, we're using the term committed through final plat. We chose that term because because they apply for a final plat doesn't mean it's constructed quite yet, but it pretty much guarantees they're going to construct it if they submit their final plat. So we show here in green the number of units that have been committed through, the units approved through preliminary plats are in green, and the units that have been committed through a final plat are in yellow. This is really showing us that it takes time from when a project is approved to when it is actually going to be committed through that final plat or eventually constructed. For units approved in 2020, 94% of them have been committed or likely constructed, whereas last year in 2022, only 18% have been committed or likely constructed. We have a total of 2,528 units that have yet to be committed through final plat. So we'll see those in the coming years. Moving on to annexation trends. So for annexations that were submitted in 2023, 19 of them were approved so far. We do still have 7 additional annexation applications that are under review. If those were to get approved, we will be right on track with where we've seen annexations in the past years, with, again, the exception of 2020 with a dip there. So moving on to commercial and industrial design review. As you know, we require design review to be completed on commercial projects, and as of 2023, we require some industrial design review. We've seen a steady increase since 2018 in the number of design review applications we review, with a total of 55 in 2023. The reviews have been consistently split between staff and committee level. However, in 2023, we did see an increase in staff level design reviews. And then future land use map designations. So moving into more future planning here. The city's area of impact is a total of 47,748 acres. 23,262 of that has been annexed into the city. We are just under 50% incorporated. For future land use map designations, over 30% of our area of city impact is designated as medium density residential, with low density and residential mixed use coming in right behind that. And then this is just another representation of our future land use designations, just a little bit more visual, showing you the total acreage there, and then how much that kind of makes up of the whole. So when we look at zoned property within the city of Nampa for our residential zoning districts, the majority of what is zoned RS6 at just under 8,000 acres. If we break it down by how those zones fit into our future land use map designations for residential, nearly 80% is medium density. And then for non-residential zoning districts, when we look at how those are zoned, the majority of it is in IL, light industrial over 3,000 acres, and BC community business at nearly 2,000 acres. If we break it down by how those fit into our future land use designations, over 50% is industrial and nearly 30% is commercial. So for our specific area plans, in future editions, as Rodney noted, we'd like to dive into this a little more. So we'd like to eventually see a breakdown of how those specific area plans are developing out. But for now, I've just provided just a breakdown of what was approved in those specific area plans by acreage. And just to wrap up, and if Rodney has any final comments, I just think it's important to keep in mind this is the first one. There's a lot of room for improvement. There's a lot more data we'd like to track, but we're limited, so I'm hopeful to expand that. And really just hope that it can inform your decisions going forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yes.
first of all, we don't grade on the first one anyways, right? So we just wait until
It's a freebie.
So could you jump back to slide 11 real quick?
Yeah.
The one, yeah,
This
that
one?
Yep. Is there and Ronnie, you probably opine on this also, but is there an effort by the city to increase the speed of approvals? Or are we in a good spot with the speed of approvals going through? Because it looks like, it takes time to get to that. So
Yeah.
just to.
Would you like to answer, or do you want me to take it? Okay, I'll try my best. So, Mr. Chair, Commissioner, I don't know that the city can increase it.
I mean, like the approval process and things like that, or is that just kind of driven by the developers and their timelines?
So, I mean, they obviously, when they submit for preliminary plat, they have to construct the subdivision first, and then they can come in for a final plat. So I don't know that that's so much the city holding that up, as in just it's taking them time to construct it, the infrastructure piece of it, before they can come in for the final plat.
Hasn't that a lot to do with what they're selling? I mean, if they don't build if they don't think they can sell it. So that could be a lag right there.
Market-driven then, obviously. yeah.
Correct, yeah, it could be
Mr.
market-driven,
Chair
certainly.
and Commissioner Kirkman, we consistently hear from the development community that we are fast compared to other jurisdictions for the approval process.
Okay, so we're in a sweet spot, and I see thumbs up out here and in the audience, and heads nodding, so good, all right. And then just to comment on slide 16.
Yeah.
I think that's a very telling graphic right there, because it looks like,
This is my
go
personal favorite.
one more.
One
I
more?
think, yeah.
16?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the medium density, 76%, if I'm reading, if I can see that, 76%,
78.6, yeah,
78?
almost 80%.
So the perception currently is that there's so much high-density housing and multifamily and everything else going around. But when you look at this, and this is the future land use, I understand that, but the perception is that that's all that's going on, and that's what Nampa is becoming, is a city of high-density apartments and multifamily housing and things like that. But clearly, this graphic is saying something completely
Yeah, and
different.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner, this is actually for zoned property, so this is truly what is being developed.
Okay.
Not even including, so there is, out of everything that is zoned residential, so has been incorporated in the city and is zoned residential, only 5.8% of it is in high density.
Okay.
And that's zoned, not even,
Yeah, not even
not
the
even
future
our future
then.
land use
Yeah,
map.
very telling graphic. I think that's very informative. Thank you. That's all I had, Vice Chair.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
Doug, looks like you're up.
Good evening, Commissioners. Doug Critchfield, Principal Planner over Long Range Planning. This evening, I'll be presenting to you just a brief overview of the activities of Long Range Planning over the last year, and then some projects that we have upcoming this year. There we go. So let me get that over. Here we go. This year, this last year, let me go back to where we're supposed to be, I'm sorry. This last year, we had 5 significant efforts going on at one time. We brought to you and the Nampa City Council the State Highway 16 Specific Area Plan, which was adopted in February. 2,600 acres on either side of Highway 16 was evaluated. The supporting code for that was also adopted in September of 2023. That Highway 16 area plan is on either side of Highway 16. On Highway 2026 specific area plan, that was adopted also in February. That involved 5,250 acres from the Boise River to Ustick Road. And that code was also adopted in September of 23. The area of city impact expansion and comprehensive plan revisions was a 2.5-year effort. It was adopted in February of 23, and we brought that to Canyon County and had unanimous approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Commissioners, and that was adopted by the county in September of #23. We brought to you a change in the ag to very low-density residential land use designation simply for clarity and by request of the Canyon County Board of Commissioners. That was approved in December. And then in '24, planning, project scoping, and contracting work, we did some preliminary work over '23 to bring on Kittleson to do the Southwest Nampa area specific area plan. We've been working internally on the downtown Nampa implementation plan, and that scope is now is out for RFPs. And then we've been negotiating and redrafting the joint powers agreement with Canyon County, and that's ongoing. In terms of 2024, the projects that we have are the Southwest Nampa area specific plan. The premise behind this is that there's been a lot of growth in this area, and we were given the go-ahead to move forward with this plan last year. Kittleson has been doing some preliminary site analysis work, and this year they'll be helping us develop a land use plan for this area similar to the 2026 plan. Your involvement here, this body's involvement, will be a workshop. If you'd like to attend that, or excuse me, a public open house and then a joint workshop with the City Council and Canyon, with the City Council to review the draft plan. The City Council will also be working with Canyon County in a joint workshop with the commission to review the draft plan. The county has asked that they be, and we have agreed to have them participate directly in the outcome of this plan. They're viewing this as this is one of their first sub-area plans from their comprehensive plan. So this is a joint effort, and we're excited to be working with the county on this. We're working on a downtown Nampa implementation plan. There have been several efforts on the downtown to develop visioning plans and standards and so forth. The purpose of this is to bring all those plans together under one plan and to also create a structure for downtown so that the downtown can work from a single source to be able to implement some of these projects. So that's what this plan will be doing. We will have a joint kickoff meeting with you, joint workshop with the council to review the concepts, visualizations, and renderings, and a final workshop with all the stakeholders to show the final plan and obtain the comments. We're working on that now. We're out to RFP, and we anticipate concluding this in January of '25. We're working on the joint powers agreement again this year. We've come a long ways with the county, and we'll report back to you if once we have more, something to report about our efforts with them. We're negotiating with staff right now, and we'll be working with the BOCC on some of the terms and the agreements that we have with them about moving forward with projects. What this influences is that when we get a project in the area of impact and they're not able to hook up to city utilities, or if they are able to hook up to city utilities, we need to have a common language in working with the county about what these subdivisions will look like. And the intent is to have them follow the land use designations in the future land use map. And we have a good relationship with the county, but we'd like to have something more certain for development as well as for the elected officials when these types of proposals come forward. We're also ramping up for the 2050 comp plan update. It's hard to believe that we're already starting that process again, but it is upcoming. The estimated timeline on that will be starting in October of '24 if the funding is approved. And we've already drafted a scope on the project. This will be more of a visionary type of a document rather than in years past where it's been kind of an overview of the community, although that element will be there. We're going to be doing a lot of street level work on this and trying to get feedback directly from the community and a large cross section of the community. And then just a couple of small projects that we're working on with other departments. The Compass has a a grant that helps us develop different aspects of the community. There's a $50,000 grant that was obtained by Public Works to study this trail system underneath Highway 16 from Meridian into Nampa. And this follows the 10-Mile Creek. So they're helping us with that. We're advising Public Works on the project and involved with that. Kimberly Horn has been brought on board, and they're already working with stakeholder outreach on that project. There's a downtown Nampa parking study going on. Economic Development is leading that project, and we're advising them as well. The intent is to complete this parking study to understand the resources needed and to review parking options and create parking metrics to assist in the proposed changes for downtown. Old Nampa neighborhood, this is a community, local community grant. And this project is to take a look at the old neighborhoods in Nampa and identify and educate homeowners on owning a home listed on the National Register of Historic Places. This is really kind of the beginning steps to see whether a district is something that the community would like out there or not, and how that would impact what people do with their homes that are on that registry. And that is also being led by Economic Development. And lastly, we're working with the VRT on a study for the Nampa-Caldwell Boulevard Public Transportation Corridor. They have brought forth a proposal. They have a $150,000 grant to start collecting data on that corridor and seeing how they can improve multimodality, and particularly how that will impact growth along the corridor. They're going to be proposing to us some opportunities for transit-oriented development. We'll be working with them on that to bring to you for your consideration. That timeline for that is spring of 24 to spring of 26, so it's a lengthy timeline, but we'll be advisory on that one as well. And that's my report.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearings. You guys ready now? So just to give you a rundown in case you haven't been here before and been through this. The applicant will come up and have 7 minutes to tell us what they want to do. Then we'll hear from staff, and then you're allowed to come up and make public comments. You have 3 minutes. When you do come up, please make sure you give us your name and address. Then the applicant can come back up for 5 minutes and answer any questions, and we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll have our discussion and make our decision. So if we're ready, the first applicant item is Home Occupation Online Firearm Sales Office, 17463 North Flagstaff Way for Randall Kohler. Randall?
Good evening. My intention
Name and address,
is...
please, Randall.
Pardon?
Name and address.
Oh, my name is Randall Kohler, Kohler, 17463 North Flagstaff Way, Nampa. My intention is I am wanting to gain a federal firearms license through the government and then conduct internet and gun show sales. I want a bookkeeping and accounting office out of our residence. Leasing a space for that is completely unpractical cost-wise. There will be absolutely no sales from the home. There'll be no vehicular or pedestrian traffic from the home. There will never be any changes to the property appearance. We're going to use one room in that home for accounting office. There will be no outdoor displays, no commercial vehicles, employees, nuisances, none of that. Any shipments from me to other federal firearms dealers will take place through United Parcel Services. I intend on delivering by hand any firearms that I'm going to ship. there won't be any inventory on site. It'll all be in an off-site location. So when I go to gun shows, I'm going to take things in a trailer that's going to be secured off-site in a commercial storage area. I'm going to sell everything at gun shows. So if I ever have any inventory at home, it's going to be because I've got an extremely rare firearm that I'm going to resell. So if I have anything at home, it'll be one or two at a time. It'll be in a secure gun safe. But there won't ever be any traffic at this location. So I believe that my plan does align with NAPA's recommended conditions and findings, and I believe that it will not in any way affect the neighborhood. That's pretty much all I've got. I did have some questions that one of the residents on the block addressed. I went down and answered all of her questions in writing. I gave her a copy of that, and I haven't heard any feedback from anyone else. But if there's anything I haven't covered, I'd sure like to answer questions.
Well, we'll hear from staff and might bring you back up when we get done.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. After all the work we put into a staff report, it's kind of rough coming up here and saying, well, this is pretty simple. But it is pretty straightforward and pretty simple, so I'll go through this pretty quick. You can see the property location on the screen here, just west of Canada Road and north of Cherry Lane, south of Landry Street. There we go. Staff recommendations, we've analyzed this, and according to the CUP requirements, we found that these appear to be met. Again, that's based on code and the comprehensive plan, and not on compatibility, timing, that kind of thing that you guys have to consider. Comprehensive plan is residential mixed use. The RS7 is the zoning. Surrounding land uses are, it's all in the Canyon Creek No. 2 subdivision. So pretty straightforward there. Single family homes. History, annexation happened in 2009, July 2017 is preliminary plat. April is the final plat. Pretty simple. Services are already there. I forgot to go through that, sorry about that. That's your zoning map, a little closer view, and then the aerial up close of the property. You have all of the applicable regulations in your packet, and just a reminder, there are standards that must be met for a home occupation, and if they are not followed, then we can revoke the CUP and the home occupation permit. Again, the intent there is to keep this residential feel in the neighborhood, not a lot of traffic, not a ton of people coming to the property. Here are the conditional use criteria you'll have to find. The public comment that we received. We did also receive a late comment. I think the applicant has addressed the first comment, and then the second comment was a late comment we received. And they just said that they were in favor of approving the permit. I'm going to skip over this. This is all in your packet. Here's the proposed conditions of approval and findings for approval and the conclusions. I also have all the facts if you want to go over that, but those are the conclusions, and here's a couple potential motions for your consideration. I'd be happy to stand for questions. If you have
Rodney, could you go back a couple of slides to where you gave the address of the person that complained? 17423.
I wouldn't say they complained. These were just questions they
Okay,
had.
ask questions
Yeah.
then. I mean, were they aware that there's another one going virtually next door to where they live?
They did, yeah, and they mentioned that in their comments, just that why do we need two of these?
Yeah, well, that was kind of like my thought too. And I guess to go a little bit further into the question, I assume the federal government has no conditions and the city has no conditions on building these things on top of each other.
Again, this is not a building, it's just in a office in
occupation.
your home.
There's
Yeah.
no restrictions by the
No
federal government or us.
restrictions.
So everybody in the house, everybody in the block could virtually do
They
this
could.
and be okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions for Rodney? No. Okay. We'll open up the public testimony. Do we have anybody signed up?
Yes, Vice Chair, we have one, Clara Askew.
My name is Clara Askew. I live at 17423 Flagstaff Way. And like you said, there's 2 applications tonight. And after reading the city ordinances included in the application packets, I realized how futile my objections are to these applications. Also, I feel rather silly being the only one from the neighborhood willing to express their disapproval of the conditional use permit applications. But that doesn't deter me from my opinion that commercial firearm sales do not belong in a residential neighborhood. Plus, tonight, we have not just 1, but 2 applications. I worked in and with law enforcement for 25 years. I know how dangerous firearms can be, especially if they get into the wrong hands, and this can happen all too easily. I don't doubt that these applicants feel they can safely store and sell these weapons, but there are always exceptions to good intentions. Although I'm a small voice, I appreciate you listening to my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? That was the only one we had signed up? Anybody else want to speak for or against on this? Okay. Randall, you want to come back up really quick? Just to clarify, she was concerned about commercial firearm sales in the neighborhood. That's not something that you're planning on doing from?
Absolutely not. We need a place to do bookkeeping. We need a place for correspondence to be sent to. I need a place to work on my laptop to locate future purchases. But my intention is to keep that neighborhood exactly as it is. I don't want anything changed. I especially don't want people to be insecure about the possibility of guns and ammunition coming and going. So I want to ensure that that'll never happen at all. And by doing my off-site storage, and my sales are going to be at gun shows, which exists somewhere every weekend around the country. I'm retired. It's what I'm going to do for a living, travel abroad. And so, I want to have a place to come back to and do paperwork. But at the same time, I want to keep this stuff off-site in a secure commercial area so that it's not in the neighborhood. I'll grab my trailer. It'll be full of what I'm going to take to the next show. Down the road I go. And of course, Nampa's going to get sales tax out of it, too.
Good.
But again, my biggest concern is that neighbors know that I have family there. I don't want anybody endangered. So there's never going to be any activity. There's never going to be people coming to the door. I'll never, ever advertise any sales be done off that street. It's all going to be at a gun show or across the nation online. And the online stuff is from one federal firearms licensee to another.
Yeah.
So it's never going to allow a citizen that doesn't have to go through the proper background checks to obtain a firearm. That won't happen.
Okay.
Vice Chair, just a quick question, more for clarification. In your initial presentation, you had made the comment, and I tried to write it down real quick, you're going to hand deliver everything I ship. And so if you could just clarify that.
What I said that for was basically in regards to a question that was asked, will shipping be done off the street? So if 99.9% of my sales are going to be handled at gun shows somewhere. If I get a firearm that somebody wants to buy off the internet and I need to ship that from Nampa, I'll go get it out of inventory. I'll package it at my secure off-site storage facility, and I will take that to the UPS shipping company. I'm not going to have UPS running up and down our street.
Okay, I think that was where the clarification was needed. Like, are you going to pack it at home and ship it from your mailbox?
Exactly the point I was trying to make.
Perfect,
So
thank
yeah,
you.
I just, in an effort to keep traffic as a minimal, I know that the neighbors, or I feel that the neighbors aren't going to want a whole bunch of shipping traffic going on either. So if that becomes an issue, I plan on just taking it myself down to the UPS shipping facility. I feel more comfortable about that anyway. I can package it and hand deliver to the facility. I know it's there, and
Thank you for that clarification.
you bet.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded to close public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
What do you want to do?
Well, we've done probably 700 of these in the last couple of years. I know I'm exaggerating, Rodney.
4.
So, and we've never had, as far as I know, we've never had a problem with any one of them. Nobody's ever lost a CUP because they didn't follow the rules. So I think the citizens can rest assured that what the gentleman told us tonight, what the next guy is going to tell us, is what's going to happen. We've never had a problem. If there was a problem with any of this, I'd be standing up screaming and shouting, no, 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 no. But I can't, in good conscience, say no because we never had a problem.
I think part of that, excuse me if I'm interrupting, but
Oh,
I think part of that is that for the public to understand, these individuals that come before us for these applications are a lot more highly scrutinized than anybody else in this room that may own or sell guns. They're asking for federal background checks, and they're going to get checked yearly. Their books, their operation will be checked yearly by the federal government. So it's not something that you can just willy-nilly come in and say, yeah, I'm going to start selling guns out of my house. That's not how it works. So I agree. I think that, you know, if they've come this far, they've taken a lot of steps already and had their background pretty thoroughly looked through. So
Could I make a motion we approve this one and the next one at the same time?
I think the guy at the end of the rostrum would say no.
no.
Mr. Vice Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we move to approve the conditional use permit for a home occupation online firearms sales office in the RS7 zoning district at 17463 North Flagstaff Way for Randall Kohler with the recommended conditions of approval and all the proposed findings.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So Randall, I got to read you this, and I'll have to read it to the next one if it gets approved as well. This conditional use permit shall become effective 15 calendar days from the date of the adopted findings of fact, unless an appeal has been filed with the Planning and Zoning Department with the appropriate fee. No action should be taken on this CUP until the appeal period has concluded. The applicant must confirm with Planning and Zoning staff that there have been no appeals. Okay. Thank you. Action item number 2, conditional use permit for a home occupation online firearm sales office, 17443 North Flagstaff Way for Nick Berry.
Hello, are you guys able to hear me okay?
You don't sound like
Yes.
it.
Hi, my name's Anna. I am Nicholas Berry's wife. I'm here on his behalf. We are requesting a conditional use permit for home occupation online firearm sales at 17443 North Flagstaff Way, Nampa, Idaho. We are requesting this for sales of firearms online, and like the previous applicant for gun shows, unlike the previous applicant, there will be a very small number of sales at the house. Conditionally to, it will be limited to family members, friends, and coworkers, and those coworkers are actual law enforcement officers. Hopefully you guys were forwarded the answers that my husband submitted to you guys of the concerns that our neighbor submitted to us and to you guys as well. As far as the concerns about road traffic, I completely agree. I live here too. I don't want shipping up and down our street. So all of our sales are actually going to, that aren't, all items shipped are going to be received at a shipping location like USPS, the Postal Service, and FedEx, things like that. So there won't be any additional traffic besides my online shopping addiction with Amazon. Commissioners, do you have any questions for me or any comments, concerns?
Not right at this moment, but we might have you back.
Thank you.
Who's doing this one? Parker.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Similar to last time, I'll only cover the differences here. There was a comment from the building department about some changes that needed to be done to the structure. They would be required to follow the building code as far as making those changes inside the building. That reason is because this is in the garage and the only access is through the garage. Other than that, the last condition that we added, all sales and transfers on site shall be conducted through appointment only, which coincides with our home occupation code as far as people visiting the property. So only one person at a time, and it limits the number of trips to the property. Other than that, there's a motion for you, and I'll stand for any questions.
Anybody got any questions for Mr. Parker? No? Okay. Do we have anybody signed up for this one?
No, Vice Chair.
Is there anybody wants to speak for or against?
Mr. Kohler?
Make a motion to close public hearing then.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to close public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I appreciate that last condition that Parker mentioned there, because I was thinking, there's no way that the city can control who is the applicant's friends, family, or contacts. So I appreciate that last condition in there, by appointment only, limit that traffic. Mr. Vice Chair, if there's no other comments or questions, I'll make a motion. I was just waiting. I didn't want to step on anybody, so.
Just waiting on you guys.
Yeah, I'll move to approve the conditional use permit for home occupation online firearm sales office in RS Single Family Residential Zoning District at 17443 North Flagstaff Way for Nick Berry, with recommended conditions from staff and proposed findings.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the CUP. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Ms. Berry, I got to read this for you. So this conditional use permit shall become effective 15 calendar days from the date of the adopted findings of fact unless an appeal has been filed with the Planning and Zoning Department with the appropriate fee. No action should be taken on this CUP until the appeal period has concluded. The applicant must confirm with Planning and Zoning staff that there have been no appeals. Okay?
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Item number 3, annexation and zoning and potential development agreement for 37.74 acres to RP zoning district for future mixed-use development for Valentine subdivision, 0 Ustick Road for Kelly Black Bailey Engineering. Name and address, please.
I was going to say, you're going to get the presentation. Oh, awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Name is David Bailey with Bailey Engineering. Office address is 1119 East State Street in Eagle. I am representing Trilogy Development for the Valente subdivision annexation request. So this is a request for an annexation of the property here of a 37.74 acre site, and but potentially, or a development agreement that would go with the annexation that would specify what we would do with the property in the future.
You've got the clicker.
I got the clicker. Got it. You'd think I'd know how to do this stuff at some point. Do I point it? Oh, it works. Great. Okay. So our property is at the southeast corner of Ustick Boulevard, east of North Side. To the north of this is several subdivisions recently developed. Northwest is Magnolia subdivision. North of that is Kinghorn. And to the east here is it Streamside? I'll see when we show up here. As I'm showing there, yeah, Magnolia Estates is there. And then to the west of this, across Ustick, is there's a Canyon County subdivision in the corner there that doesn't have any buildings on it. For the comprehensive plan, future land use map for the project here, this project is entirely contained in the mixed use area. And then we'd be mixed use to the east and to the west, to the north, and then to a portion of the south is industrial. And as you know, in that area, there's quite a bit of industrial development to the south of this. If we go a little further to the northwest in the big picture area here, actually north of the Kinghorn subdivision and northwest of this, you're running into Caldwell. Right, so we're getting out towards the northwest end interface there. The zoning proposed for this property, which is consistent with your future land use planning map, which we'd ask for with the annexation, would be RP designation. To the east is RUT, to the west and south is RUT, and to the north west, RD is for the Magnolia subdivision. That's already zoned and annexed, and that's actually the annexation path for this comes through that Magnolia subdivision. So it is contiguous to the city for the purposes of annexation. To the north there, we're showing RP, and that's going to be a requested zone for a property that's coming into the city then. So I'll as I'm saying that, I'll come back and say this project was originally brought before the city as a preliminary plat, annexation zoning and a preliminary plat in 2021, and the Planning and Zoning Commission approved the project in 2021, and we had a requested RD zoning on that at the time for that project. Then that went subsequently to the city council, who denied the application in April of 2022. So we're 2 years past that at this point. Denied the application at that point based on some concerns of density of the transportation network in the area, and that annexations are just discretionary basically on the point of the city. So we're not ready for this yet, is what they told us at the time on that. So with that said, let's go back to this one real quick here. So on the future land use map, this future land use map is different than it was in the previous application. So this use is consistent with the current future land use map. So the city's plans for this area have changed in the meantime. That's why we're back with a new application on this here. And then, as opposed in accordance with the conditions of that current comprehensive plan, the findings need to be made that it's contiguous to city limits, and that the proposed zoning designation is consistent with the comprehensive plan, so that you can decide if a development agreement is required for that. So that's the conditions for the annexation and zoning of this property, which we're requesting. So two specific objectives in the comprehensive plan are that we, objective 3.2.1, encourage mixed-use developments along major transportation corridors. And of course, USTIC is a major transportation corridor in this area. The second objective is that is 6.1.1 of your comp plan that says the city should prioritize projects that are proposed that have the greatest impact to traffic congestion mitigation and the transportation master plan. Is the impetus to get this annexed here. So at this intersection of USTIC and Northside, there is a proposed roundabout. From my understanding is that is getting close to being in design for this area, and that they'd be doing right-of-way acquisition next year and construction in 1.5 to 2 years of that intersection there. So we're asking for the annexation now, and we won't come back with a preliminary plat until these transportation improvements are ensured. But what that does for us is, with the annexation, it gives us a way to look at this and say, we can participate and donate all of the right-of-way to the city that's required in order to produce this intersection in advance of that. So this makes sense for the city and makes sense for the developer going forward, and is consistent with your comprehensive plan. So a little better picture of the roundabout, and we'll dedicate right-of-way along USTIC, north side, and then at the corner there to accommodate additional right-of-way that's going to be necessary for that roundabout. The same developer previously dedicated the right-of-way at the northwest corner here from the Magnolia subdivision, and is prepared to do the same in the northeast corner. So I think the only issue you're going to have with roundabout for this is going to be at the southwest, if there's any issue at all for this project. And then, so we are proposing a conceptual plan for this so that the city can see what we're going to do. And our development agreement would require we bring back a plan that's substantially consistent with this for a preliminary plat, but that would go through the entire preliminary plat process at that time when we bring that back, including an updated traffic study that would be required to be submitted at that time showing that it makes sense. So the plan we have proposed for this is for an RP zone compliant development, which allows between 2.51 and 8 units to the acre, and then has a commercial component to it, which we're proposing in here. And we're agreeing to all the conditions in the staff report, and I'd be glad to stand for any questions you have or answer them later as well.
Any questions for the applicant?
Right now.
Bring you back up.
Thank you.
Hear from staff. Ms. Christie.
I'll leave this.
All right, thank you, co-chair and other commissioners. The action requested from you this evening is for recommendation of approval for annexation and zoning to RP for a future residential mixed-use development located on the southeast corner of Eustic and Northside.
Christie,
Yes,
really hard to hear you. Can you move the mic closer?
that's unusual.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't going to say it.
I know. It was a new Christie.
So the property to the north, immediately to the north, is enclaved, and it is in Canyon County currently. There will be an application coming forward on that one in the future. He showed it on his map as being zoned RP. I believe that's what they're going to be requesting, but it is not there yet. To the northwest is the RD zoned Future Magnolia Estates subdivision, and that is the path of annexation. So kitty corner across the intersection there. To the southeast and west is all Canyon County. Immediately to the west is the Northside Estates Canyon County subdivision. Sewer and water and pressurized irrigation have adequate capacity to serve this property. The project will be required to construct utilities to and through the property at the time of development. As stated, there are a number of capital improvement or capital transportation projects in this area. There was a traffic impact study prepared with the previous application. The only triggered mitigation item identified in that study at that time was the left turn lane at the proposed project access for Eustic Road. And they will be required to keep that updated as we progress. So the following public right-of-way dedication is required by this project: 50 feet from the section line on Northside Boulevard, 50 feet from the section line on Eustic Road, and any additional right-of-way that may be required for the roundabout at the intersection. The city has adopted a corridor study for Eustic Road in conjunction with the Canyon Highway District Number 4 and Nampa Highway District. That was part of the reason for denial for this project initially, was that Eustic was undergoing this corridor study and they didn't feel like they were quite ready yet to make a decision on the density of the project. Now that that study has been completed, they're coming forward with this application. Allowance should be made for the adjacent property addressed at 8767 Eustic Road to be able to take access off of the internal public roads at such time as this property develops. The bicycle and pedestrian master plan will require a 10-foot wide pathway along the Purdom Gulch Drain and along Mason Creek. The correspondence that was received, we received 2 items from public, one from Robert Simpson regarding traffic, water use, and wildlife on that property, and the other one was from John Chapman regarding compatible development and potential other layout of the property. The building department has their usual requirements to address the building regulations. The fire department states that this is 2.6 miles from fire station number 3 with an approximate response time of 6 minutes. 468 new residents would create a demand of 0.48 firefighter positions. And to accommodate that, the impact fees at the time of build out is $252,287 that will go to the fire district. And then engineering lists their standard conditions of approval and comments. So as you know, the comprehensive plan defines compatibility, residential areas, and residential mixed-use principles and housing goals and strategies, including location of higher density development near to job centers and major transportation corridors. This area, as it develops into industrial uses to the west, will become a job center. The proposed RP zoning district is a permitted zone under the Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map designation of residential mixed use because it allows for a mix of uses without needing to have separate zones for each developed area. And it also addresses the housing goals outlined in the comprehensive plan. The request is not currently asking for a preliminary plat approval, but the residential mixed use designation requires a density that falls within 2.51 to 8 dwelling units per acre, and that future preliminary plat will need to meet those guidelines. Residential mixed-use areas must be planned to provide a suitable residential environment with private, semi-private, and public spaces located throughout the development. Qualified open space with park-like elements should be required in all residential developments. Housing types could be single-family detached, townhouses, duplexes, single-family live-work units, residential with retail and commercial at street-level storefronts, and residential and commercial buildings with potential artist studio lofts. That's all language out of the comprehensive plan. Engineering has been very specific with the drainage and irrigation requirements. A portion of this property is located in the 100-year flood zone with the floodway. As such, future development shall adhere to Nampa City Code Title IV, Chapter 9, Flood Damage Prevention. So for annexation, there are 3 criteria for evaluating this. 1, the property owner has consented to this application. 2, the property is contiguous to the city limits on that northwest side. And 3, the area can be reasonably be assumed to be available for orderly development of the city because the uses in that area, the right-of-way that is going to be dedicated to the city and improved with all the frontage improvements at the time of build-out or possibly before with that roundabout coming in. So there are also 3 criteria for zoning to be met. This does provide for zoning that is in harmony with the comprehensive plan. It does provide for a set of uses that are compatible with the area or the future development in the area. And the annexation and zoning is in the interest of the public and reasonably necessary due to the fact that they will be required to dedicate right-of-way, install curb gutter and landscaping, and a side path to create space for commercial services that will benefit the area. These are the recommended conditions of approval as listed in your staff report. These are your potential motions, and I will stand for any questions.
Christie, I have a couple of questions for you. But I'd like to ask the city attorney to keep his ears open because if I say something I'm not allowed to say, shout and holler or throw a knife at me or something, okay? John Chapman has submitted a letter and also a couple of examples of how he thinks maybe this might look better, but it doesn't look like it's multi-use. Is it multi-use, Christie?
Commissioner Kehoe, the layouts that I saw were single-family detached units on fairly large lots that actually wouldn't meet our comp plan.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought too, but I really can't see, I can't read it, it's awfully small writing. So then, had it the elements we needed for mixed use, could we accept something like this from from the public to use as an example of something we might prefer to see? Would that be beyond our?
Commissioner Kehoe, since they have not submitted a preliminary plat, you can have that discussion. It still has to meet the densities. They still have to provide the mix of uses. They still have to provide the open space elements. And they have to meet our minimum and maximum lot sizes. So,
okay, so say Mr. Chapman came back with a plan like this that met all those elements. Would it hold any weight at that point, or would it just be somebody speculating on something they would like to see?
Go right ahead.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Kehoe, I think we just need to look at this as this is your decision, and it's between you and the applicant. any comments we receive from the public can inform your recommendations or how you want to
We could say, if you want
condition
our
that.
approval, we would like to see this, this, and that.
You could, but again, that's just a suggestion by the public, and if you agree with that, then it becomes yours, right? It's your recommendation that you place on the application.
I didn't step on anybody's toes then, right? I'm good. All right. Thank you.
Christie, did you analyze the conceptual plan as far as density or as far as its compliance with the zoning that they're requesting?
Commissioner Garner, I did not do a thorough analysis of the concept plan. I would need to know the base lot size for the attached units. I don't have any footprints on the concept plan, so it was hard for me to look at that and see what those looked like. So I didn't have enough detail to be able to analyze it, and since it's just a concept plan at this point.
So if there is a development agreement with the concept plan attached, they still have the flexibility to comply with their preliminary plat?
Correct, and I would put a condition into the development agreement that it meets current codes, so that however long it takes them to get to that point, they have to meet the codes that are on the books for when they submit.
This is happening.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, we'll open up the public hearing. Do we have anybody signed up?
Yes, Mr. Vice, we have 4 speakers. The first is Ms. Tara Smith.
No, thank you. Oh, come on.
Came all the way down here, Karen, come on.
Okay, Karen doesn't want to. We'll try the next one.
Next is Ms. Kim Nevins.
Make sure to give us your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
That's okay.
All right, Kim Nivens, 18089 North Phlox Way, Nampa. I think a lot of the concern, at least that I have, is not necessarily just the traffic, but just changing what Idaho's known for, like what attracts you, the small town feel. You start bringing all that in, and you lose that. You turn into hustle and bustle, like go, go, go. You kind of forget like what life's actually all about. I know that sounds silly, it's just developments going in, but the more we keep putting in right around the area, everybody who's lived here for years and years and years, they're gonna lose that too. And but I think aside from the traffic, it's the kids too. There's schools around, increased traffic, you have kids walking. That would be a concern of mine, is children walking to and from the schools. We also have the high school. There's increased traffic because of the high school as well. And already we have cars flying through our neighborhood to the high school. So we already have increased with both of the schools, which schools in the area are great, but we're talking about increasing at what it was 200 and, or whatever it was, however many units it actually was, the proposal, I don't remember, but in multifamily too, you're gonna have multi-cars there as well. So we're not just talking about a single car at each unit as well. So you're increasing that as well. So that's my concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to come up now?
Come on, Karen.
Next is Mr. John Chapman.
Hi, John Chapman, Nampa, Idaho, 17706 Northside Boulevard. So the information I gave you was just ideas that the 2 engineering companies had talked a little bit, and I presented it to the engineering company already a little bit to try to get a good feel of what maybe should be in the area. Now, whatever they're presenting, I know is going to be approved some point in time, and I know we're just here for annexation. But even if you annex it now, I think you need to put some stipulations on it on density, because the density that they're doing now is even higher than the last one they did, because they were required to put some commercial lots into it, so they just up the density. And so I don't think it's even compatible with the whole area there, all because there's not very many services available to these people, and the traffic, even if they improve the roads, it's going to be, I would guess it's going to be between 27 and 2030 before you ever see this road improvement we need. I mean, they talk about plans, and I've worked with the engineers on all the planning when they were planning the expansion on the north side and all the stuff they have to change there. And I think that, I know it's going to get annexed. I mean, there's no doubt that the annexation is going to take place, but I think you got to stipulate on how much volume of density that's going to happen here, even though it's mixed use. Even what I presented has some mixed use to it. It's not mixed to everything possible there, but that's what they're trying to do. So living here all my life and the family being here 100 years, we just felt like that this diversion or conversion from industrial to the south, even my house is in the industrial zone where we're at, to transfer into real high density stuff when there's already some low density in that region there is not appropriate to be doing. And so that's why I object to the annexation under the premise that you're going to put everything that they want to put in there. Now that's going to be approved later, and I can work with them on that some point in time. But the community location level has been really poor with until lately with the purchaser. Even back when we tried to sell it, we couldn't get meetings with them to talk about what was going to happen. And so I got involved in it and felt like it, from talking to the neighborhood, and I explained it in the letter I gave you, that I felt like there ought to be some consideration a little bit. So, okay, that's all I need. You can ask me questions or whatever.
Well, thank you for what you did. How about that?
Yeah. Thank you.
Most of the public doesn't get involved, and thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Our final speaker is Mr. Brian Pearson.
Hi, I'm Brian Pearson. My address is 17754 Polaro Way in Napa, just across the road to the west. So in my remarks, just want to touch on a few points. I can't go into much detail in the short time that I have, but I'm going to cite provisions of the comprehensive plan, which I'm kind of using as a yardstick. I spent some time with the plan, and it's much cited in the staff's consideration. They use it as a yardstick as well in this requested annexation and rezoning. 5.3.4 in the comprehensive plan says the city staff will continue to work with Canyon County to develop strategies to conserve agricultural lands and utilize planning tools to preserve the character of the area. I think in the slides that you were presented, I was doing some quick math, and I think the 6-year span, 2018 through 2023, right at 2,000 acres has been developed. Not all of that would have been ag land, but the vast majority would have been. If you do the math, I think you're at 300 plus acres per year, so you're losing about half a section in rough numbers of farmland to residential and industrial use per year. I just thought that was interesting. The 2021 proposal, I've got the information sheet for it. It was 115 single-family units and 18 common use. It's now 161. I was at the city council meeting. It was traffic density and density within the subdivision. So the answer to having 115 and 18 being too dense is to come back to you with 161. That's the opposite direction if you're working the math. A couple other points. The traffic study that was required for the Heartland subdivision across the street to the north in 2017, I'm sorry, and you have this traffic study available on your website. Thompson engineers came back with the intersection of North Side and Ustick did not meet the standards then. There have been hundreds of homes added since, but they said not to worry because the City of Nampa citywide transportation plan will have the intersection signalized with left turn lanes in all 4 approaches by 2020. That was to have been completed 4 years ago, hundreds of homes since, and now maybe a roundabout in 2025 or 2026, and maybe not then. And then who knows what will happen with Ustick. I would urge, if you're considering decisions like this, on the occasions when Ustick is open east to west, and it's not often, but occasionally it's been open, drive out there sometime. Try to go west on Ustick between 4:30 and 7. And so you could say that, well, traffic is a byproduct, it's a growing pain. It's just an inconvenience. It's a safety issue. Any traffic engineer, any law enforcement person will tell you it's not just congestion. It is about safety. Schools, I don't speak for the school district. I don't know why they don't come to these. I got data from.
You're out of time.
But
Your 3 minutes is up.
Oh,
Wrap it up.
Yeah. Okay.
Please.
Yeah. Valley View School District. Ridgeview High School is not far away. It opened in 2018. It had 1,286 students. They've got 1,609 of them now. They have a design capacity busting at the gills of 2,000. At the year-over-year enrollment increase in 4 years, they'll be busting at the seams. East Canyon Elementary, got numbers from them, 750 students, their capacity is 625. They're 20% over capacity now. So I don't know where y'all's purview is to consider these things, but it seems like in terms of quality of life, in services, just in being people able to live their lives, that somewhere along the way these should be taken into account. I was very grateful to hear Mr. Ashby say that when you're considering decisions about future development, you're going to safeguard the interests of the folks already here. I'm one of them. We're all part of them. I just don't see how this fits. Any questions on what I've said?
Thank you.
Sometime I'd like to talk to you about the industrial development immediately to the south and west of us. I've got, it's that ship has sailed, as they say. But yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
That was all we had signed up? Yes. Is there anybody else wanting to speak for or against?
Mr. Vice Chair, just a quick question. The first person who signed up who did not want to come up and talk, was that individual opposed or for the applicant? Okay. I didn't want to speak for you, but I just was wondering if all of them were against.
Okay, we'll get the applicant back up here, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. David Bailey again. So, I get the take that the neighbors have on this, and I guess I'll address those the ones individually. Is the first one ahead on the traffic on this? We have had a traffic study. We're going to submit another traffic study when the project is done, and those numbers tell us what the improvements are required to be done for this. I will note that the roundabout is actually funded. You can confirm that. So this is something that's going to happen as far as building that when we get there. Mr. Chapman, and then the first one too talked about density in addition here. And so while I understand there's specific concerns about this and the concerns about the area, certainly I've done a whole lot of work out of there over 20 years now. We started with the Coulter Bay subdivision back in 2002, so I'm very familiar with the area. I don't live there, but I'm through there a lot and have been for 20-something years and followed the development in this area. We know some of those larger lots are in that area and that they've been accounted for. But through that time, the city has changed their comprehensive plan and their plans for density and plans for improvement in that area. And they have come up with what you currently have as a comprehensive plan. So these folks' question about density is not about our specific project. It's about your comprehensive plan, right? And they should be involved in that. And you should be concerned about, did we do the right thing when we passed the comprehensive plan for this area? I can't answer that for you, but I can go ahead and draw my plans and do our plans for a project based on the comprehensive plan that you published that's out there. And the annexation is based on, are we consistent with the comp plan, which we are? That comp plan would allow a range of 2.51 to 8 units to the acre as far as the density on this. We're proposing about 4.5 on this. It's 161 buildable units as opposed to the previous one was actually 140 units was on it because we had proposed some duplex lots, right? So we had lots on there that would have been built with 2 units on each one. So we're about 140. So yes, our density is a little higher than that. I think that one of the plans that Mr. Chapman submitted had a plan that had something consistent with what we had here and had the mixed use on it, but it was pretty close to 140 or 145 units. I don't know the specific numbers on it. The other 2 plans he submitted, I don't feel are consistent with your comprehensive plan and just don't make sense for the city or for the developer. They don't follow your comprehensive plan, and it's not what we should be doing in this area. We're adjacent to density, we're adjacent to these areas, so I guess I'm just supporting your comp plan. I'm not opposed to what the folks are saying about the density here, but your comp plan says otherwise, and they should certainly be involved in that process if they want to come here and talk about that piece. That goes for the comment about preserving agricultural land as well. I get that, and we count up the numbers on that. We do have a goal to do that, but that goal has to be met when you write your comprehensive plan, because you're not going to conserve that agricultural land on there if you designate it as residential mixed use on your comprehensive plan. My developer's going to buy some ground and he's expect we could develop it, at some point within that density. So we're asking to follow your comp plan. We're asking that you approve the project based on that. There was a comment about the school district, and I won't go too deep into that, but we do have, as a condition of the annexation, that with the city, that the services are available, including school districts, that it should be considered when you do your annexation. The school district has not said that this can't be served by the schools out there, and we're not even at the preliminary plat stage on this in any case. So that comes down the road when we submit a preliminary plat. I still got a second here. Last item on that is that if you have some specifics saying that, hey, when you bring your preliminary plat, we'd like to see what Mr. Chapman said, or if you want to incorporate that, we'll certainly take that to heart and have that on there. So we have a conceptual plan in here. We intend to follow the conceptual plan. If the city says, the DA says that you should follow some other plan when you get there, then that's certainly the P&Z's, right to tell us that this is what we want to see with you do with the property when you come to that point. So I certainly don't deny that, and we appreciate Mr. Chapman's interest in this, and he's certainly local to the area, and he sold the property to the developer, as he went along here, and took the price for the ground as it was, when he sent it, as opposed to a reduced density piece, when he did that at the time. So I guess that's all I have to say, unless you have some other questions for me.
Anybody got any more questions for the applicant?
Mr. Bailey, on your concept plan, do you know what the percentage open space is on that plan represented?
It's over 15%, which is the new requirement of the 15%.
It looked like it had quite a bit there. I was just wondering if you had a number.
I do.
18.6?
Yeah, 18.7% is a usable open space provided on this. So that's in the park areas.
All right. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Did you have a question?
I wouldn't ask Daniel a question, but we can ask him afterwards.
Yeah.
Been motion seconded to close public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now you can ask Daniel. He's got a mic. There you go.
Daniel, I assume the information about the roundabout is correct. It has been funded?
The roundabout is under design. It's a joint project with the City of Nampa, Canyon Highway District, and Nampa Highway District. If I remember correctly, it is scheduled for construction either in 26, I believe it's 26. We are working on right-of-way acquisition right now, so I don't know exactly what year it will be constructed, but it is under design and in the funding queue.
Okay, thank you.
The right-of-way acquisition is not going to be an issue whether this is approved or not approved, because at the time that roundabout's going to be built, whatever is there is going to have to.
So I will say annexation of this property and dedication of the right-of-way ahead of us coming to negotiate for it is certainly advantageous in the financial street portion of things, because as an annexation, they would be required to
It's already
dedicate
there.
that rather than the city having to purchase it.
Okay. Mr. Vice Chair, if I could, I'm glad we're not tested on this stuff, because I should know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyways. The concept plan that is with this applicant tonight, if this is approved, the annexation, does that concept plan become part of the approval, or does that have to go through a DA? Is that part of a DA?
It will be recorded with a development agreement that will then be attached to the ordinance for annexation.
Okay,
But
so-
the concept plan, you can put conditions on that concept plan to meet certain requirements, if you want it to be less dense going forward, those kinds of things. You can stipulate that, and then with the preliminary plat, they'll have to bring that forward.
So since the concept plan, if approved, would be in that DA, would it be possible to change that in the future once they bring a preliminary plat and it doesn't look like it's going to work? I mean, that DA is going to have to, would that DA be able to be changed? That agreement, or?
So if that's a recommendation that you would want to pass along to city council, to say that before we record the development agreement, they come back with something that meets A, B, and C, and that becomes the concept plan and the development agreement, you can do that, because the ordinance and the development agreement have to be read by city council one final time before they approve it. And that new concept plan can be part of that that final document, if that's what you choose to do.
I'm trying to understand this because, I mean, if the development agreement is entered into tonight, I mean, if it's approved and becomes part of that, and we have a development agreement, but then we put conditions on it, so it's like the DA is just the agreement is just kind of hanging out there until. Is that my understand? Am I understanding that correctly?
Just a
Or
reminder.
am I not even saying it clearly?
Just a reminder that a development agreement will still have to be approved by city council, so you're a recommending
These are just
body.
recommendations.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then a development agreement, if they approve a development agreement and the annexation, they have to put some criteria on what that development agreement should include at the public hearing. So city council would have to say, okay, planning and zoning has recommended these things. We request that you come back to us with a development agreement that includes those things, for instance. That's just an example.
Yeah.
And then that development agreement would have to come back to them for their final approval.
And the reason I asked.
Can I follow up?
Yeah, please.
So the so if we recommended a development agreement with the concept plan and whatever criteria we decide to say, that can be approved by the city, and then down the road, if they wanted to change that, they would have to apply for a development agreement modification, correct? So it could be changed, but they would have to go through another process. Correct, okay. Yeah, we do.
So the preliminary plat in the future, if you guys come up with a concept plan that works for everybody, we get the development agreement, they come back with the preliminary plat, it will only come to you for approval. If they want to do something vastly different, they'll have to change the development agreement, and they'll have to go through you and city council again.
Yeah, the reason I'm asked this is because or bring this up for discussion, is just that the density. That's really what I'm looking at here, is the density. It went, and I think it was denied, if I'm not mistaken, not just because of the transportation plan, but I think the city council was concerned about the density at the time, and I know that was back in 21, or 22, April of 22. And now with a little bit more density, there is more density there, and that's just why I bring that up and wanted to make sure with the process, because if we recommend a development agreement now based on the concept plan, which is higher density, in the future, that could be changed through that process that you were.
Yeah, and I think that and let me ask this question, Christie, the zoning that they're requesting, what's the current zoning for that parcel now?
I believe it's ag in the county.
Okay, but as far as our zoning, we would be going by the comprehensive plan or the future land use map, right?
Correct.
And it is designated as residential mixed use?
Residential mixed use,
Okay.
correct.
And I think that's the thing is, that's what we've put on our, like was rightly pointed out, right? That's what we put on our future land use map. That's what we envisioned that it would be. And there's, the merits that I see with the project are the fact that what's already there, there's a lot of subdivisions out there right now, right? Surrounding it. And so it's already been developed out. It's not like it's out there in the middle of farmland. There are other subdivisions right around it. And the way that they've designed it, at least the concept plan, the most of the density is closer to the roundabout, right? And then all the larger lots are down at the lower part of the V so that it's away from. So you've got a gradation of density, so to speak, right? And so the larger lots are going to be down away from where all the traffic is. And the other thing is that we talk about, and we talked about earlier on when they were presenting the data, the 2023 report, right? And we saw all the little circles showing how much, mixed or medium density residential we have in the city, and then, comparatively what we have for commercial. And I've pounded this drum a million times, right? That everybody goes out to the marketplace because that's the only place we can go to get our stuff because we put it all there and then we surrounded it with a bunch of residential. But this is I think why I like the commercial, right? Because it takes some services away from and kind of controls that traffic a little bit because you don't have to go to where everybody else has to go because you can go get some services that are nearby, In
your subdivision.
Yeah.
Well, I don't see.
So those are some merits that I see to the project, right? And why I think that annexation would be good, but also to lock in that concept plan.
Well, and I agree with your concept of the commercial, but I don't think they're putting an In-N-Out burger on that, on one of those commercial sites there. So taken away from what's going on down the road at the marketplace, but I agree with, I agree with the concept, yeah, and I appreciate the mixed use also. Those are just, and thank you for helping me understand that a little bit more with the DA.
Yeah, really, this is about land use, right? I mean, that's what our decision tonight is on.
Yeah, just
We need to close public hearing.
It's already closed.
We did.
Did we?
Yeah.
I think you voted too.
Need coffee.
Yeah, it is, the annexation. But that's why I was wondering, after this and down the road, is there still a little bit of wiggle room if necessary? That's all I was.
There's definitely wiggle room either way. I mean, and that's the way we have to look at it. It might put more work on somebody's shoulders down the road, but when we really look at the whole picture, it's, do they meet what we as a lot of us and citizens and city council and as many people as the mayor and staff could get to come to those future land use meetings to make those decisions, agreed on and voted on. And how many meetings have you been to like that? And I've harped before on citizens. I mean, I really appreciate people coming. I really appreciate you giving opinions and taking the work to draw concepts. What I'd really like to see is I'd really like to see more of these same faces at those meetings for future land, so they can have input at those meetings and stand up and say, hey, I don't agree with that in this area. I would rather see something a little less dense, and this is why. Because then you're, getting the horse in front of the cart like it should be, instead of the opposite like we see at so many of our meetings. So enough of that, but.
So I want to ask commissioners this and try to stay away from staff because I don't want to put staff in a position where you have to make but you're very adept at skirting around the issues. We appreciate that. So the concept plan that's been proposed with this application, if this were approved, would there be a need to even add any other conditions to that, since it could be down the road changed and to whatever way it might need to go at that point in time?
Well, the only one that and that's why I asked the question about the open space, right? Because we know we love to see the open space. And you see all that green on that map, you know, and so that's why I say, if it was me, I would say there needs to be at least 18% open space on that concept, on the preliminary plat, right? When they come back to us with the preliminary plat, so that they're not coming in and showing us all this green. They're like, no, we needed to add a few more, so.
That's.
Right, and so I would say that, right? And then you could say no more than 160 units or whatever it is they're proposing, so that the density does not grow. And that's the only thing I would say, right, is like something like that, so that the concept, well, they can massage it and make sure that they meet all the, you know, the zoning requirements as far as lot size and all that. They'll have that wiggle room on that, but they can't substantially go away from the concept.
And that could be in the development agreement as is, right? I mean,
Well, and Matt and Jeff both, that green spot in the upper left-hand corner, most of that's going to be gone because of the roundabout.
yeah, so I could drop it to 15 or whatever the percentage might be.
Yeah.
I'm not a mathematician, but yeah, I like that. I like what you're saying, Commissioner Garner, on that. I just don't want it to go be so vastly different.
The open space is not going to be as big as it looks like on this map after it gets all done.
Commissioner Kehoe, I believe that this has been designed with that roundabout
With
in
the
mind.
roundabout.
It has been?
in mind.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look at the, yeah. If you look at it up close.
I slapped my hand.
And please strike everything I said when I agreed with Commissioner Kehoe.
So what do you think?
I like the conditions, the parameters that
Matt?
Garner was talking about, so I'm going to shoot it down that way.
It's up to you.
Got them in your mind.
One other question I had, Christie, was on the Compass report. It looked like it had a grade for safety, and there was two of their little red X's there. And I'm wondering, did we get any information on that? Pedestrian level of stress and bicycle level of stress, and I'm assuming that's because of lack of sidewalks and things out there, right?
You would be correct, yes.
Which is another way that this project would serve that to help, you know.
You think this project's gonna bring the stress level down for bicyclists and pedestrians out there?
For probably about 500 yards, maybe. However wide that is, that's about what we're gonna get.
Then it's back to open.
But impact fees are important, we know that, right? So,
Okay, Matt, ball's in your corner.
well, it's up to Christie. She needs to get us a motion up on the screen.
Oh, I'm like, what are you talking about?
It's all your fault, Christie.
Okay, let's take a stab at it.
Okay.
Mr. Vice Chair, I move to recommend approval of annexation and zoning and potential development agreement for, well, I shouldn't say potential. We want to request a development agreement for 37.74 acres to RP zoning district for a Valente subdivision at 0 Ustick Road for Kelly Black, Bailey Engineering, representing Endurance Holdings LLC, with all the conditions listed in the staff report, and adopt the proposed findings of approval as stated in the staff report, putting in recommending conditions in the development agreement that the density proposed in the conceptual plan does not increase, and also that there is at least 18% open space in any new preliminary plat.
I'll second that.
Sound okay?
If that's.
The attorney's shaking his head, so you did good.
You can get fired.
You get an attaboy. Did we get a second? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I seconded it.
Okay, thank you.
And just a quick thought on that. I think that's a good motion. It's not exactly what some people in the gallery would like. However, it does put those parameters around this so they can't go more dense and less green space. So I appreciate that.
Yep, I agree.
I'll stick with my second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Oh,
Okay, I move we table this to the next meeting.
yeah, no kidding.
I move we table it till the December.
2026.
It's put so much work into this, and we just like, whatever.
It's going to take a long time. It's both Christie and Doug. This must be a long one.
Take that one.
I want to continue it until they provide more pictures.
All these words.
Refreshments?
Do you need me to read what? I hope I don't have to read that.
Just read the, oh, they're not in bold.
No. All I
Just
have
say
is-
action item
Action
3-4.
Action item number 4, Napa City Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map Amendment to change the residential mixed use, community mixed use, and medium density residential designations to high density residential, commercial, and industrial designations in the north of railroad tracks, south of I-84, east and north side, and west of railroad tracks. Christie and Doug.
And the Nampa City Code text amendments.
And the Napa City Code text amendment.
That's good.
That work?
That works.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you, Vice Chair and Commissioners. Christy Watkins, Principal Planner for the City of Nampa. The requested action from you this evening is to make a small change to the future land use map in the comprehensive plan and to take a look at various changes throughout Title 10. There aren't very many. I know it looks like a long list, but they're really pretty simple. We're going to start with the comprehensive plan. So this area, and if you look to the right on the zoning map with all the circles on it, you'll see a zoning designation called IL-RS. The darker purple one with the blue circle is actually IP-RS. We don't have a zoning designation called that. There was years back, I think 2002, 2003, this area was zoned RMP or something like that. And it was a mobile home zoning. And they took that away and they kind of just made these zones where you could choose between the two. It's made it very, very difficult for us to regulate it out here when development comes in. And so one of the things that we've noticed that's happening out here, and you'll see the RML and the RMH in that area, there's been a lot of requests for high density development in that area. And so the comprehensive plan on the far left is what we are looking at now. And it has mixed use out there with just a little bit of high density residential. And then medium-density residential along the railroad tracks at the south end. So what we're proposing is to kind of clean that up a little bit and put high-density residential in the areas that are already zoned, a high-density residential zone, plus the areas that are ILRS or that they can choose. So that as that area develops out, it kind of stays consistent. And then clean up the areas to the north and make the area along I-84 be commercial zone, which for exposure purposes seems to make sense. Along with that, we've also proposed this change in Chapter 3 that describes those dual-zoned properties and says that if you want to develop on it, you will be required to rezone it to something that matches the comprehensive plan should you choose to change it. That's that piece. And then we'll move into just the regular zoning code changes. In Chapter 1, we just wanted to clean this up a little bit. We want to get the specific dates out of here and just say, non-conforming building as it was approved per a previous zoning ordinance, not necessarily set a date to it. And then in some of the definitions, we've removed all references to guest houses because we basically have just gone to calling them accessory dwelling units, ADUs. So we're taking the whole term guest house out of that. We've added a figure to demonstrate structure height so that we're not giving people different information as far as how we measure a building. In this one, this is for bonding. So we have adopted this code through the last code changes that allow us to collect a bond on a commercial project that maybe it's the middle of winter and they can't put the landscaping in, but they want to get occupancy of the building. They can put 150% bond down on that property to make sure that those landscaping improvements do get put in, but they can use it in the meantime. We had kind of a little bit confusing language there in that last sentence, and we just cleaned it up because sometimes you get multi-tenant projects that have a phasing plan and they want to be able to occupy it as they go. And so this just kind of cleans that up a little bit and helps staff explain it to the developers. In Chapter 2, under enforcement, so this is kind of a big one. We have been working off of 3 criteria for zoning map amendments. And the reason why we went to 3 versus the 5 that have been in code up to this point is because the 2 that you'll see are crossed out here, they're kind of redundant. They already talk about the comprehensive plan, future land use map. So it felt to me, or to us, that they were just trying to say the same thing again in a different way. And the number 4 one actually was the flip. It was the complete opposite of one of the other ones. And so it actually, you couldn't meet both of them. You either met one or the other. So we cleaned that up a little bit, and we just took it down to the 3 criteria that we've been talking to you about. It's in harmony with the comprehensive plan. It proposes a set of uses, and it's in interest of the community. Proposed changes to the comprehensive plan. We have written into code that these will only happen once a year. So you won't be seeing comprehensive plan amendments with any given project at any given moment. They will only happen once a year at the beginning of the year. And so if someone wants to change the comprehensive plan, they're going to have to wait for that cycle. Also in Chapter 2, thank you, Commissioner Turner. He brought to our attention that there's very specific language in our code about the order by which people should be testifying during a public hearing, and that isn't necessarily needed. They can testify in whatever order they want to testify in. If somebody were to come in late, you can't stop them from saying what they want to say, and if you've already passed by the in support of group, you can't stop them from being in support of the project or vice versa. So we took the order of testimony out of this language and just said a person with an interest in the application can speak. So thank you, Commissioner Turner.
You can
for pointing
testify,
that
but
out.
it has to be in opposition to.
I just ran across.
Welcome to oppose.
So then we go into Chapter 3. And we are talking about unlisted land uses. And we used to have a paragraph in here that talked about ambiguity. And if it wasn't in the list, it had to get a conditional use permit. And we just kind of clarified that language a little bit too. If a land use is not listed or is unclear, it can be determined by conditional use permit via the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then one of the footnotes we noticed was talking about commercial daycares of 13 plus children or a not at home occupation. That doesn't really make much sense. So we kind of clarified that and said it is not a home occupation. It is a commercial daycare and will have to meet commercial regulations. On the land use chart, we have a new committee for downtown talking about kind of revitalizing downtown a little bit. And one of the things that we noticed through that conversation was that we didn't have high-rise apartment buildings allowed in our downtown district, which we thought that doesn't really make any sense. That's something that we want to promote. And so we put a permitted use for 4+ stories in the downtown. We also are allowing nursing homes and convalescent treatment centers in the downtown historic as well. And then the big one. We are removing the ability for a conditional use permit in an IL zone for a concrete patch plant. It will not be an allowed use going forward.
In March?
Yep. Sorry, just missed it.
February 26th?
Yep. And then we have some cleanup that we wanted to do in the actual zones. One of the things that we changed the last time was that there would be a 15-foot rear setback for just a standard building in these zones. However, with high-density residential, sometimes that 15 feet is difficult to be able to get all the parking and the open space and everything else that's required in a development. So basically what we said in the RML, RMH, and RP zones is that it would be 5 feet unless it is adjacent to existing residential uses where they would have an issue with the heights of the buildings. So that's just proposed in there. And then we go into the downtown village zoning district. We realized that we did not have commercial fencing outlined in the downtown village. We only had residential fencing outlined, and so we put in a section for commercial fences. In the downtown historic district, we believe that the original intent of this code was to not allow any kind of illuminated signs on the outsides of the buildings in the downtown historic district, so we just said, we took out the projecting cabinet, because to us that means perpendicular to the building, not on the wall. This means all signs downtown now cannot be illuminated, internally illuminated, excuse me. In the IL zone, none of this information as far as the bulk standards has changed. We just put it into a table format so it'd be easier to read. For parking, we've had some conversations with people who want to do a health club in a shell-style building. And the only category we had to go off of was indoor entertainment, which is 1 per 75 square feet of gross floor area. For a gym or a health club, that's a little bit excessive because most of the floor area is taken up by equipment. And you typically will have classrooms and break rooms and bathrooms and those kinds of things. And so we changed it, actually got someone to help me calculate this out, and we came up with 1 per 125 square feet of net usable floor area, so they can show us where that equipment is going. They can take that square footage out of that calculation. Variances, we have just some cleanup language here. There's some areas where it goes to city council, and then there's some variances that can just go to our planning and zoning director. And so we wanted to clarify which goes where. And we took out parking reduction because if they want to reduce parking, they can try to get a variance. It didn't need to have its own category. In the CUP chapter, we needed to clarify our closing statements for our conditional use permit. Before, it talked about how a permit will terminate after 6 months of the effective date of the approval unless construction or alteration or authorized activities have commenced. We changed that to be more clear as far as a City of Nampa permit for alteration of the site or construction or another planning and zoning entitlement related to the project is applied for prior to the end of that 6-month period. So therefore, a design review approval or something like that would then lock the CUP into place. But it would have to be through the City of Nampa. It couldn't just be a random permit from another agency. If a permit or other planning entitlement as referenced above expires, then the conditional use permit will also expire. So that paragraph explains that. We added information about cemeteries into our subdivision requirements. We changed it so that the approval process goes to the planning and zoning director. And that's it. And then it talks through a process to do that because a cemetery is a cemetery. I don't know how you guys.
It could be a subdivision too.
It does. It requires a subdivision, but are you going to deny it?
Yeah. It's just a different type of person in that subdivision.
In that subdivision. So we just figured, if it's already a cemetery and they want to put a columbarium inside something that's already a cemetery, do we really need to waste your time to make that decision?
No, but that discussion would be interesting.
Yeah, you've had that discussion. And chapter 33, under landscaping, Doug just defined xeriscape versus xeroscape. Those are two different things. So we want to make sure that we were referencing the correct things in our landscape code. That's all I have for you. These are your potential motions, and I will stand for any questions.
Christie, in reference to the batch plant, are we still going to have those 3 individuals standing by?
Yes.
You talked about earlier?
Yes.
Because you don't know whether these people are going to react?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I think I might need to just make sure this is clear. We are proposing changes to the IL zone so that it would not be allowed, but that doesn't change what has already been applied for.
Right.
So we are still going to move forward with
Whatever's
other
coming up.
applications that have been submitted as if the code were still in place at the time of their application.
It's got to go by what was in place at the time of
That's
the
correct.
Application.
Christie, on the comp plan change to once a year, how many have you guys had to deal with on those comp plan changes? Or
They
we've
don't
had to?
happen very often. It's just that, the comp plan is one of those guiding documents that tells
Change
us
daily.
how to
Right.
move forward. And if we're constantly changing it, it turns it kind of into a zoning map.
Yeah, and that's what I was wondering. So there hasn't been a whole lot of public wanting to change the comp plan, and they're knocking on your door every other,
No.
okay. That makes sense, once a year.
Okay. We'll open up for public hearing or public testimony. Do we have anybody signed up?
No, Vice Chair.
Is there anybody here that wants to speak on this?
I make a motion, we close public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded to close public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. And, well, what do we want to do with this thing? Do we want to keep Christie here until?
I think we need to go through it again.
A little slower?
Yeah, go slower.
It's yours, I told you.
I will, Mr. Vice Chair, I'll make a motion to approve, is this recommended approval, or was this approval of the planning and zoning? Okay. Recommended approved Nampa City Council, or Nampa City Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map Amendment and Title 10 Planning and Zoning Amendments with proposed staff findings as presented in the report, and direct the Planning and Zoning Director and City Attorney to draft an ordinance for reading at a future City Council meeting for the City of Nampa.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Actually, yeah, it's not necessarily a
I'll make a
recommendation,
motion,
is
we
it?
adjourn.
Because you have to do the draft. The draft has to go to City Council anyways for approval.
Somebody second it?
Did anybody?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I made the motion, and then she made the motion, so one of us made it, and the other one seconded it.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.